Moving right along. In part 3 of the 6-part series, talking to Nick and Chris, we're going to talk about the human race. Or as I like to call them, the disease of Earth. Now, mind you, I am human. Well, I'm 1/8 elf. You can go back and watch the 1/8 elf episode if you want to get the details on that. However, I see us not long for this Earth. The way we consume, the way we reproduce, the way we destroy, the way we pollute is completely out of control, and it's on a path of imminent destruction. I love being human. I love being alive. I don't want to see us destroyed. But if you look at the dinosaurs and the course of time that they lived, it was something outside of their bubble that caused their imminent destruction, their fall from grace, or whatever you want to call it. We, in the last however many tens of thousands of years that we've been on this planet, or if you want to take it to the last 5,000 or 6,000 years that we've been a civilized or somewhat civilized society, have done more damage to the planet than the dinosaurs ever thought or could have done. Anywho, so take a listen to what they have to say about it, what I have to say about it, and I think it's an interesting subject matter. So thank you guys for tuning in, and tomorrow we'll have episode 4 up, which is... Oh, it's an interesting one. I'll leave it for you guys to check out tomorrow. And thank you guys for always tuning in.
From one location to another using a pole.
Yeah, I mean, I just think as a human race, we're just awful. We should be destroyed. Like, I mean, if the planet itself is going to survive, like, you know what I mean? It's
I don't think we are animals in our own way, and we do act like we are animals. We procreate at a rate that animals do. We're just doing our natural thing. And I don't think that's necessarily bad, but it's definitely not good for us right now.
Yeah. I mean, how do we define what's natural anymore? I mean,
true.
We're just doing what we've been evolutionarily programmed to do. But what we're seeing now
is we're kind of, altering that.
Well, yeah, in a sense. But it's hard to tell because obviously we're no different from any other animal.
Well, yeah.
Like you said, but...
Well, I don't know if I agree with that, though, because, I mean, do other animals or other species consume at the rate that we consume, or do we destroy at the rate...
not on this kind of scale.
They don't have access to the tools we have.
I mean, if you look at, I don't know, the bubonic plague.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, that's probably more efficient at reproducing it, at, doing its whatever its process is, than we are. I mean, the human race came very close on... to extinction.
Yeah.
And we've been able to bounce back, and I don't think that we're destined. The problem with this is I think there's a tendency to say, okay, this is what we're destined to become.
Yeah.
We're destined to create civilization, and we're destined to then it's always there's always this fatalism, this teleology.
We must achieve our goal or our destiny.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a one-way track here. I think there are many different courses we could take, and we could have taken. This just happens to be the one, better for worse.
When I think about taking humans out of the equation, or a good percentage of the humans out of the equation, I think about downtown Lynchburg and the buildings that haven't been restored, and how quickly. I mean, I've only lived here 10 years, and I've seen buildings that, maybe have just recently been abandoned when I moved here, are now completely retaken by nature. It's trees are growing out of windows.
Nature will soon forget us when we're gone.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a true statement. I think it's only a matter of time.
I could see a scenario in which a lot of I don't think humanity is a very, very resilient race, but I don't think we can, I don't think we're prepared for what we're going to create on our own.
I don't know. I think in the grand scheme of things,
humans
on the cosmic calendar, we'll be a blip on the radar.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
compared to the dinosaurs, which lived for how many millions of years?
Well, mammals have a much lower, lifespan as far as extinctions.
No, but even still, the dinosaurs lived in a. I don't want to say sustainable, but internally, without an external force.
They could have
gone they'd still be here.
They got the short end of the stick. They really
the dinosaurs would probably still be here if the meteor didn't hit.
Yeah.
And
we would be mammals probably.
Yeah, and we've seen so many different cycles, different epochs throughout our planet's history where different creatures came into existence and then died off and then came back in. Something like 97% of every species that's lived is now extinct.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and humanity will be just another one of those. We've only been around for 100,000 years, and that's nothing compared to others.
We're a pretty small blip. Albeit we did a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, civilization's only a few thousand years old, and all the stuff we're talking about, all this tremendous growth, has only happened within the last 100 years.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, the dawn of, in 1800, there's a totally different world than the one we currently inhabit.
Yeah.
I mean, we what is it now, like 7 billion? Probably getting close to 8 billion.
I remember about 10 years ago it was like 5 billion.
Yeah. Well, 100 years ago it was, if I remember correctly, it was only a couple, maybe not even a billion.
That's amazing.
Or at least 1 or 2 billion.
Man.
Just within a few generations.
Yeah, well, you think about that. And it only increases in speed. Yeah. There's no slowing that down unless you start, slapping, you can only have 2 kids.
That's not a good idea.
Kind of, though. Like, there's something, there's a, I guess a social theory, an economic theorist, Malthus, who said, this is where we get like the Malthusian crisis, that term, where a certain population can only be sustained by a certain amount of resources.
Mm-hmm. I'm not entirely sure that's applicable anymore.
No, I think it is still applicable. The only thing is we've artificially increased our carrying capacity through agriculture and other advanced forms of agriculture.
You ask Jeff Kincaid about that.
Yeah, you can talk to Jeff. But these are all things that still rely on infrastructure. Mm-hmm. It relies on a certain system being in place, a system that's kind of contingent on social forces, cultural forces, political forces, and these are very tenuous things. Like we've seen how the present economic structure can dissolve within just a few months, and we've seen political upheaval, revolution. And once this goes south, who's to say that we aren't going to have the Malthusian crisis? Where the population will be forced to go back down. Yeah. And I think it'll be inevitable.
It is inevitable.
And even if we don't hit a crisis point, right now Japan's population's declining. Most of Western Europe is.
I think when nations start, after they stop industrializing, they usually lower their populations.
Well, and I think what we're seeing is
just happen.
I mean, most of the population explosions in India, sub-Saharan Africa, most of the third world, and these are places that are going through industrialization.
But does it happen in waves like that? Does Japan decrease in their population where this other place increases? Does it stay level? Does it level off, I should say, at some point? Or does it, continue to spike even though it's different areas that are doing it?
And that's hard to say. I mean, it's kind of been like a tidal wave. Now we're at the crest.
Right.
And the fact that Japan's experiencing the same phenomena that Europe is going through doesn't really say much about the regional diversity, the differences between Japan and Europe. It really talks about, or I think it speaks to how much our world has kind of exhibited that globalization that's been talked about for so long. We're really becoming one world now. Yeah. And I think
Jimmy Cott has been talking about it for a while.
Yeah, I think it's easier to come up with these large overarching generalizations when before you couldn't make them.
Right.
And so I don't know what'll happen with the population. I think it'll probably go down naturally.
Yeah, it will.
I do.
I
just can't tell you.
Yeah, it's a spoiler.
It's a spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut this now just because we're at like 41 minutes.
Jesus. And how did that go?
This is empty.
Jesus.
So we'll be back in just a moment with some more stuff. Actually, I think, what I'd like to talk about next?
What's that?
What would you do if you were the last man on the planet?
That's a good one.
So the question that you posed to us earlier.
If you were the last man alive.
Last man alive.
What would you do?
Or at least you think you are. You wake up. Let's say
you think you're the last man alive.
You've been alive for 2 weeks. All right. The first few days. All right. Let's do this. The first few days. You wake up the very first morning. You have no idea. You go outside. Suddenly you discover something weird is going on. There's no cars. There's no planes.
There's nobody out there.
My Facebook feed isn't updated.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why isn't Facebook down?
Well, the first question I think I would ask is, where is my family?
Right. I think that'd be the rational question.
And if I cannot find my family, I think I at that point would freak out.
Yeah.
I would have some type of breakdown. That would probably last a few days. Maybe weeks, I don't know. And I'd probably go out looking for them, more likely than not.
Yeah.
Probably go out just try and walk just try to find them.
And
that's try
probably,
to find clues.
That's probably when you'd first start to realize it's not just my family.
Yeah.
There's nobody here.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on?
And then I start realizing that Liberty's gone. I, torch the place probably.
Just for fun.
Yeah, why not? And I move on. I probably, just keep trying to find my family.
At a certain point, I would have to imagine if everyone's gone, that I don't know, like what kind of questions would be going through your mind? Because at a certain point, you have to start asking, what happened to everybody? Like,
right,
oh, yeah,
right.
That's mostly what I've been trying to find out.
Would there be bodies? Are we talking about?
Yeah, that's all right. Let's say there's no bodies.
Okay.
We'll say rapture-like events, though. Let's just say, like, planes have crashed, there's been car accidents, but it's not total chaos. Like, it's not uncontrollable. Like, you're still living in, generally, the world that you were living in.
It's just
power is still up at the time being.
It's like that show, like Life Without Man or something like that, or on the History Channel.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Where,
I
like,
haven't
just
seen that
removing people from the equation.
Yeah.
Just not there anymore.
So, I mean, it's not like years after. It's like, it's pretty much the same way you'd wake up tomorrow, except everybody's gone. Right. There's no bodies, we'll say.
I would have to imagine at a certain point I'd probably think I was dead.
Yeah. I probably would do that too.
And I mean that would, and then of course the course of action from that point would be interesting. Because different people would react differently, I'm sure, if they thought that was the case.
Right.
But then you'd be second guessing yourself, and you'd be like, well, there are signs that things happen up to a certain point. Like I said, planes crashing.
I try to find out if I'm hungry or not, because that would determine if I'm dead or not.
Well, but even then, you have no way of knowing. You have no point of reference. You don't know what it's like to be dead.
Yeah, but I don't think you need to eat if you're dead.
Don't know.
I have to wonder, like, obviously I'd get a little silly. Like, as soon as I knew that there was no hope for finding my family, or no hope for people coming back. I mean, we're talking like 3, 6, 7 months, have gone down. Every day is the same thing. Probably the power goes out eventually, I would imagine. Yeah. Like, I think at first, you could have... You'd be sad at first, but you'd get over it, I think. And then you would start to do the things that in your head... I mean, for me, like, I don't know why... Like, I remember watching a movie where, like, eventually he loses his mind. He starts, like, wearing dresses and just smashing stuff. But, I mean, I would imagine I would go through a phase of that. And I just have to wonder, like, in a story like Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Would there come to a point where I'd be like, I can't do this anymore? Would I try to kill myself? Or would I, how long would that take?
Right. I mean, yeah, it depends. Like, if you can, I think the best way to keep some kind of meaning in your life, would, at least for me personally, would be to travel. I mean, as strange as it sounds, there's, even if everyone were to disappear, there's things to see.
There is,
I just wander.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't see that as I know this might sound weird, but as a bad existence.
No.
I think it could be a lot of fun.
I do too, yeah.
I think it'd be fantastic.
No traffic, no lines.
Think about it. Every house is kind of a storybook of memories.
It is.
And if you go into their house, see who lived there, spend an entire day in someone else's house.
I would dedicate myself to making sure that if someone, some other life form found Earth, they'd know what happened. Even if they couldn't read it.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
I mean, they probably wouldn't be able to read it, but maybe in pictograph form.
Right.
Kind of caveman type of painting.
But that I
They'd be competing with many other art forms of
I
art.
do like that idea, though, of like thinking like every home is its own story to be told.
I think an existential crisis will come in around, week 3 or 4, after you've just started getting used to the idea that there's nothing or no one. But I mean, honestly, I think the day-to-day survival might be an issue.
Right.
For a while.
Mm-hmm. I think my first concern after the first few days, would be like, okay.
It'll run out.
I mean, you have to wonder too if there's one other person out there, or it really kind of puts you in perspective too. I think putting yourself as the last person on Earth. Because, yes, you are the last person, but are you then the last person on the street, in the city, in the state, in the country, in the world?
You don't know that for a fact.
Right. I think I would always be wondering.
What is so special about me that I was the only person left?
Right.
There could be a thing like it wiped out, 99.999%.
Right.
There's still several thousand people on the planet.
Yeah.
If several thousand people did, inhabit the world, spread out reasonably.
You probably wouldn't know it for a while.
Yeah, I mean...
You may never. I mean, if you don't have a means of transportation, especially with oceans between you, you know what I mean?
And if you were immune to a virus, you're the only person that was immune to a virus amongst, maybe hundreds of thousands across the planet. You would probably not know that there's other people. You probably would think you were the only one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't think you would ever. Especially after first year or so, I don't think you'd ever think that there's one other person out there.
I mean, I'm sure eventually, like, if you just started wandering, you might come across one, but it's probably rare.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to.
A big place.
The odds of having to be the only two people like left in like even a state or a city. Yeah. Like there could be somebody alive at the mall, and I'm here. Mm-hmm. They decide they're going to go to Target to pick up some beans, and I'm going to Walmart to pick up a vest.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah, you may never cross paths.
Right, it's very likely you wouldn't.
Yeah, it'd be like winning the lottery to
I would probably create some type of large sign saying alive.
Yeah, maybe a fire or something like that.
But even then, if it's two people in the entire world, there's no guarantee that they're even on the same continent.
Well, I'm not saying two, maybe hundreds of thousands of people.
Oh, yeah. That'd be a little different.
I mean, if it's just two people, then...
Yeah, then that's...
You're never going to find the person.
But I don't know what it is, but I've always been drawn to that kind of story. Like, I Am Legend.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever read the book version of that?
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
But, like, I think about his day-to-day life, Neville's, like, the movie did a good job of portraying the newer of the movies, I thought. Like, going through the movies one at a time.
Right.
Honestly, though, at that point, I'd probably just box them up and go home. Mm-hmm. However, like, I put myself in his shoes, and I think, he did pretty well for himself for a while until, of course, he didn't. But.
Yeah.
Right. There's also another movie, The Last Man on Earth.
Yes.
With what's his name?
Vincent Price.
Vincent Price.
Oh yeah.
That's a good one.
Which is an older one. I think that might be late 50s.
That's like a very good one.
I mean, yeah,
for its time. I mean,
yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, I think the drudgery though of the first little while would suck.
Right.
But I think we would get used to it. It depends on if other animal is all life gone from this hypothetical
that's a good question. I think it would be nice to still have wildlife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just humanity.
That could get dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, it really could, because it's going to quickly, really 10 years down the line.
All those wolves and shit that, were kept out of, civilization by, humanity keeping them down.
Right.
They're going to start breeding.
Yeah.
And they're just start looking for
it would happen quick. Look at the deer population. Like, we have hunting seasons to keep them down. I only, I remember...
a predator, they're going to get a lot of them.
Right. Black bears and grizzly bears. You see them already, coming into,
you might actually
neighborhoods.
see a resurgence of mountain lions in certain areas.
Yeah. But that would only make it more fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, well,
I don't really think it would definitely be an issue, but, there'd be plenty of guns lying around.
Oh, yeah. You would have no issue defending yourself from these animals, but, I guess it depends on where you live.
Even if you had to deal with panthers and tigers and...
Yeah, I don't think it would be an issue.
It would be a threat, certainly.
Gunpowder has kind of eliminated most of the problems. The main issue would be finding a safe place to sleep.
It'd be fine. Well, no,
go to a big city or something.
Yeah, there are buildings, and of course they'll decay over time. But
that's my next question.
But even still, I think within the span of a lifetime, you'd be.
Yeah, I don't think a building would decay to the point where it would be collapsing.
I think the biggest problem would be the fact that we're used to these comfortable lives without having to worry about gathering food and taking care of ourselves in a natural environment. Without the assistance of a system to support us. I think that would be the biggest problem for most people. Just getting used to small things like the heat, the bugs. These are things that we don't deal with regularly in our daily lives.
I hate bugs.